The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
Stan Collymore! Oh, yes!
Telling it as it is.
Instead of tweeting and putting on Instagram that Collymore's this and Collymore's that, come and tell us.
No holes barred.
Go on, Stan! Look at it!
Pure, unadulterated Collymore.
And Stan Collymore strikes.
A happy Monday to one and all, and a very warm welcome to The Last Word with me, Stan Collymore, Hugh, Whizzy, and our second new signing in the transfer window. I'm delighted that Sam Miller joins us. Every Monday we'll be taking a look back at the main talking points from the Premier League weekend, the biggest interviews with giants of the game like Jurgen Klopp, Jamie Carragher.
If Liverpool got 90 points this season, it'd still be an amazing total. You've had a great season. It's just that you're coming up against one of the greatest sides, I think we'll be saying, in the next 2 or 3 years when Pep goes, of all time.
Gary Neville and Sol Campbell finishing off with the stories from around Planet Football. This is The Last Word with Stan Collymore. Come on!
The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
We're the UK's #1 podcast and we only work with the best. That's why we teamed up with the UK's #1 sealant and adhesive, CT1, to bring you The Last Word with Stan Collymore. Like us, they're a top performer. CT1 was the sealant which repaired the London Eye and the last remaining ship from Dunkirk. Aye, aye, Captain, the Wildora. It's #1, we're #1. And you'll be #1 if you use it.
The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
You're listening to The Last Word with Stan Collymore, available to download every week across every podcast provider. Tell your friends and join the revolution. Delighted that Hugh Whizzy is back after watching his beloved Arsenal beat Newcastle at the weekend 1-0. I'm going to pick his brain about that. And delighted we've got a new signing on board. Sam Miller, delighted that you're here. Looking forward to having you with us for the season.
Happy to be here.
Fantastic. Let's get straight into it. The big story of the weekend. We're going to come to the games, of course. We're going to be talking about Frank Lampard, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, what happened at Old Trafford, Liverpool and Manchester City's fantastic start. But it would be remiss of us to miss the elephant in the room. VAR. Is it killing the joy, spontaneity and passion of the game? Or a must to get more decisions right? We've had 3 or 4 big incidents this week, Hugh. Raheem Sterling at Manchester City at West Ham, offside by a millimetre. We've had a penalty retake because of VAR. And then in yesterday's game, Leicester City against Wolverhampton Wanderers, an East West Midlands derby. We've seen a header come off a defender. Referee has gone back, looked at it, Andre Mariner, who's a big Villa fan, by the way, and no goal. Nuno Espirito Santo, his post-match comments, the Wolves manager said, not good for the atmosphere of football, it's what fans come for, and they also come to celebrate a goal. Where do you stand, Hugh Whizzy, on the VAR issue?
Okay, we've been at World Cups, we've watched the beginning of this transformation happen. It's a process that has to happen so that we do get all the right decisions, because ultimately we're sick of being cheated out of results where we could have come away with the points or wins as fans. That
Frank
said,
Lampard, that goal, I was there in Bloemfontein. He hits it, England are wearing all red. I'm commentating on the game. It hits the underside of the crossbar. It goes over by a country mile. No goal because the ref didn't see it. That would now be a goal, and we might see different outcomes from games.
My issue with VAR is simply being in the ground, not knowing what's going on. So I know a lot of people are saying that they want it scrapped, that they'd rather just have the conversations down the pub of whether or not things have happened. Me personally, I would rather see the right decisions being made consistently, but we need to improve not only the time it takes to make those decisions, but how transparent we are when we're trying to get across what exactly is being talked about. Because in the ground, you're clueless. You're waiting for a sign that says goal scored or not. That in itself is not enough.
I agree, but I saw this with Martin Samuel made the comment on Sunday Supplement, is that, and again, with rose-tinted glasses on as a fan, and look, I'm 48, Martin's probably a similar age to me, maybe a little bit older, is that back in the day, you used to come from the game and you were the authority on the game. You'd go into the pub and they'd say, what happened? And you'd tell them what happened. And his argument was, now I'm in the ground and I'm the last person to know what happened. Does that really matter? Isn't this a case of Wolves, header, hits the player's arm, then turns the ball in? It doesn't matter whether fans know or not. What matters is the right decisions made?
I just don't think that that's the way forward. Transparency and understanding exactly what's going on is what people deserve. We pay money not to be in the dark and just waiting to hear results, or delaying the celebrations is bad enough. We just like the transparency of, even when you're watching TV replays, why do we not have the same lines that they're using to work out?
So
whether
how would
things
you
are
tinker
offside?
it? You like a correct decision being made. You like the fact that you can walk out of the ground as a fan or as a player and have certainty. How would you like to see this tweaked then?
We need to hear what the referees are saying to the guys in that office, in that room, right? The guys who are making the decisions need to be talking through so that it's like understandable. For now, we're guessing and relying on people and just trusting that they're getting it right, when a couple of the times it's debatable. I mean, a lot of this is going to be subjective, but ultimately speed it up and just turn the mics on, basically.
Sam, speed it up. You're at the Women's World Cup, a lot of games, watching the Lionesses very close to the camp as well. Is that you saw VAR, and you said to me at Spurs the other day, you felt it was too slow. Why?
Firstly, Stan, what a difference a weekend can make. I saw you at Spurs on Saturday, and I wasn't a fan of VAR after being at the Women's World Cup in France. The Ellen White goal that was ruled offside against USA for the equaliser, it was just the speed of VAR. It took too long, and just the anticipation of waiting for an answer. Having seen VAR hit the Premier League, it feels like it's speeding things up now. I think as long as it's not a slow process, it does, as you said, get rid of the spontaneous element of the game, and the celebrations at the World Cup. Players didn't feel like they could celebrate goals because they didn't.
Does that matter? I mean, all I heard yesterday, Bruce Millington, who's a cracking journalist, works for the Racing Post, he said, Stan, I walked down to watch my club, whatever his club is, I think he's a Crystal Palace fan, and you are taking a part of the joy of the experience. And I said to him, Bruce, that's all very well when you're talking about, right, I saw Aston Villa, I was there as a journalist, but the fan in me saw John McGinn race to the edge of the box, slow down, score, I jumped up. That's going to happen anyway, you just anticipate it. But do you know what the joy is? The joy is getting the training from Enfield Town to White Hart Lane. The joy was being with a couple of Spurs fans, walking the whole length of White Hart Lane to the ground. The joy was walking into the stadium for the first time, this incredible bowl. The joy was the fans singing and the banter between each other. Hugh, surely we've got to a stage whereby we are being royally entertained by this sport to not be too pernickety about 3 or 4 seconds after a goal is scored.
Honestly, Stan, you're a former top-class striker, mate. I'm very disappointed to hear this opinion from you. You're supposed to be enjoying banging it from 25 yards. When it goes in, what are we doing? We're stopping you and saying, hang on, you're not celebrating just yet. Got to talk this through. A minute and a half later, you can go. It's finished. You've killed the moment. He's right. The passion is being drawn out of it. If you are going to get people involved the way that we want, let them know what's going on so that we can at least share the moment with the people who are on the pitch, who are probably in the dark as much as we are, thinking, what is this? This is not the game that we signed up for.
Sam, you can see his arms going. Do you agree, disagree? Pick him up if you want.
Do you know what? I completely agree with you about the passion element. It does take away that passion. But I think Phil Neville summed it up perfectly. He said, ultimately, you just want the correct decision. And when we sit back and you think about it in that respect, it's right, it's true. We want a fair game.
I was happy with the way it happened at the World Cup. It was my first real experience of VAR. I just think that the transparency needs to be improved.
What do the pros think? I was in the Spurs press office. Sam was eating a vegan curry, was it?
Inspired by Hector Bellerin.
Hector Bellerin, of course, who drives a paper car or is, made of bamboo. I don't know. But we're in the beautiful, sublime surroundings of the Spurs press room. So every week when I'm at a game, next week, for example, I'm at Chelsea against Leicester. I've scored in that game. I've scored a winner for Leicester at Stamford Bridge. But I thought I'm going to ask the big question every single week, whatever it is, whatever fans want to have asked. And this week, of course, it was always going to be about VAR. We knew across the Premier League it was going to come. So I asked Mark Schwarzer, Premier League winner, goalkeeper extraordinaire, Bradley Allen, formerly of QPR, Gary Thompson, formerly of Aston Villa, of West Bromwich Albion, and I was a young lad at Crystal Palace when he was there, and Matt Law from The Telegraph. Are they fans of VAR or not?
I'm actually a fan of it. I've said it from day one. The thing is about fine-tuning it, making the actual process of delivering the verdict quicker. I thought today, I was at West Ham, Man City today, and I thought overall the process was far, far quicker than what we've seen in the past.
Bradley, this is going to run and run and run and run through the season. Are you a fan of VAR?
I am, Stan. I think it will give referees clarity in the big calls, certainly in and around the penalty box and offside decisions. It's a must, especially the profile, the levels now and the coverage that we're seeing, Premier League and Champions League football, and to support all of the officials further, I think it's the right move.
Initially, I was dead set against it. I mean, as an older player, you don't really like change. I weren't really having it. I saw it during the World Cup, and I've leaned towards it. And then, towards the end of the season, and now the things that's happening, I'm now looking at it more and more, and I'm thinking, as you say, you just summed it up. They suck the joy out of it. Like yourself or myself, we score a goal, we want to have that moment of celebration. When you've got to, hang on a minute, it's a goal, and then you have to celebrate after. It just kills the moment.
I am a fan of VAR. I think it's a good thing. If you're going to, it's going to help the game. Surely we all want the right decisions to come out, and this is how we're going to do it. It's got to be better than the alternative, which is to get loads of stuff wrong. Clearly, there's going to be some teething issues. Clearly, there's going to be points that create debate because it's new and people don't either understand it, or they're not used to it, or they can't get their head round it. Or as we saw at Anfield, when at half-time, the linesman had to go off for ages and there was a delay. There's going to be just little things.
Stan Collymore.
This is The Last Word with Stan Collymore, Hugh, Whizzy and Sam Miller, every Monday, available to download on all podcast providers. We've just been into the Spurs press room and heard from journalists, ex-players. Gary Thompson, he's not having VAR like Hugh, Whizzy. Bradley Allen, he thinks it's evolution. He thinks it's absolutely right to get the right decisions. So that one through the season is going to run and run. Gary Neville, I'm going up to Manchester on Thursday to have a chat with a multiple Premier League winner, Champions League winner, and probably alongside Jamie Carragher, that's going to be joining us very shortly. One of the best pundits in the game. But first, it's the stat pack with Sam.
Most goals scored, Manchester City with 5. Most shots in a game, Spurs with 31.
Spurs, quite incredible, 31. That's at least double what most clubs in the Premier League had in terms of shots. Why? Aston Villa decamped into their own half, most of the second half of play, having taken the lead. And basically the picture, if I want to paint it in your mind, is imagine 8, 9, 10 claret and blue shirts on the edge of their own 18-yard box. Spurs bombing forward, left, right. I was really impressed, by the way, by Kyle Walker-Peters. He got my Spurs man of the match. Tyrone Mings with my Villa man of the match. But those shots on target are about right. Absolute dominance from the Lily Whites.
Least shots in a game, Brighton with 5.
An interesting one. Brighton score 3 goals out of 5 shots, but it was the lowest amount of shots in the Premier League. Graham Jones will be delighted, though, a clean sheet. I think that Brighton only kept 7 of those in the entirety of last season. And 3 goals out of 5 shots shows a fantastic strike rate. Brighton only scored 3 goals or more in 4 games last season. So a cracking start for the Seagulls.
Most shots on target, Manchester City with 9.
No surprise there.
Least shots on target, Leicester City with 1.
A little bit surprising because the next stat, I'll read that one. 525 completed passes. Brendan Rodgers, we talked about him last week, Hugh, likes to get the ball down, likes to be proactive, play through the lines. We gave a lot of love to the likes of Harvey Barnes, James Maddison, Damari Gray. Chowdhury as well, that you mentioned as one to watch this season. They will keep the ball and Brendan will look to pass and pass and pass. But 1 shot on target with Jamie Vardy up front is not enough, so they've got to translate shots on target, creativity with blunt force trauma, and that means goals.
Most tackles, Newcastle, 39.
Villa fans will be going, oh, Steve Bruce, welcome back to town. Likes to play a back 5, 2 wing-backs, going all the way back to the likes of El Mohammadi in his Hull City days, did it as well for Aston Villa. The fact that Steve Bruce is rolling his sleeve up already against the Gooners and putting in tackles left, right and centre, they have got quality, and we'll come to that with Hugh very shortly when we analyse the games. But the most tackles of the weekend, Newcastle United. Less tackles, more interceptions, more fast-flowing football. That's the stats with Sam.
The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
You're listening to The Last Word with Stan Collymore. I'm delighted. I've got both of my bombing on fullbacks on point. Hugh Whizzy bombing down the right-hand side Hector Bellerin-esque, whipping balls in left, right and centre. And Sam Miller down the left-hand side. Who could she be like? Pick a great left-back.
Well, I'd be cutting in and shooting because I'm not left-footed.
There you go. Cutting in and shooting. We'll be more than happy with that. So Mo Salah or Sadio Mane, both of those.
I'll take that.
He'll take that. Right, let's have a look at the weekend's games, if we may, please. Manchester City, the champions of England, and Liverpool, second, of course, in the Premier League last season, and champions of Europe, off to a flyer. Let's start with Friday night football. Liverpool 4, Norwich 1. I'm sorry, guys, and you may agree, you may disagree, you may think I'm being very, very harsh out there amongst our listeners, but Norwich City were garbage. And the reason why Norwich City were garbage, before anybody shouts at to their phone, their radio, is quite simply because if you're 3 or 4-0 down against any team in the Premier League, and you do not take care of business in your own half, and defend and do the dirty work, you can have all of the philosophies that you like, you can have all of the pretty patterns, you can score 95 goals in the Championship last season. Hugh, Whizzy, you are going to lose a lot of football matches.
You may well do, Stan, but did you really expect Norwich to get anything from this game? We're talking about the European champions here. We've got elite players all over the pitch. They're resting guys. They don't even have their full-strength team back. I think it was a little bit optimistic for people to say that Norwich would do anything different from what they do, which is play expansive, open football. We saw last season Fulham got taken apart, and it was obviously their undoing.
But confidence goes very quickly in this game. In the first 2 or 3 games, you might be able to get away with saying to the group, fantastic, we keep playing. This is the way that we play. I can remember Kevin Keegan saying it years ago. This is the way that we play. If you don't like it, I go, he said. And they didn't win the title. They were 11, 12 points clear at one stage. We're not saying that's Norwich, and they've only spent modestly, but still nonetheless, you go and defend better than they did at Anfield.
Okay, maybe you do, but initially, right, that's the plan. If you see yourself 2-3-0 down, let's play football, guys. We've only just got here. Let's build some confidence, make sure we keep the ball, look after it, and we'll get ourselves a goal that we can build from. And that's what they did. Look, the fans were going crazy. They appreciated that moment. They needed that moment. First Premier League goal back in the big time. Is for a striker who's been, there are doubts as to whether he can do it outside of the Championship. Great for him to get his first goal in the league or the season. And I just think they shouldn't be written off immediately because they are trying to do something. And obviously, they're doing it against the best, so if it does go wrong in the first attempt, you can't hold it against them.
Sammy's the concern here, and the worry that I'm trying to display is not that Norwich trying to play football in the right way, not trying to get forward, not trying to service their striker, Timo Pukki, that was fantastic this season, already gets off and running, as Hugh said. It's the fact that if they take this philosophy into every game, it's not just Liverpool that are going to be scoring 3s and 4s. We're disrespecting the likes of Bournemouth that score a lot of goals. We've seen Brighton with the new manager score 3 at Watford yesterday. Is that their philosophy is going to see them, like Fulham last season, get torn to shreds everywhere?
Well, as you said, they're playing open, expansive football, which does leave you vulnerable. And also just looking at how young the back line were, you would hope it wouldn't affect their confidence with such young players. But then you look at the other end of the pitch, Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Robertson are both extremely young, but their experience is another level compared to Norwich. And
Max Aarons, of course, who's the next big thing to Ben Godfrey, both very young players. I guess the question I'm asking is, and you've hit the nail on the head there, young boys that come into a very good team have the chance to flourish and the chance to shine. Young lads that are coming and getting done week in and week out. Ryan Sessegnon at Fulham, he was expected to be the next big thing last year, Hugh. And he's got his move to Spurs. He will play with better players. But that affected him last season in the way that it may affect Ben Godfrey and Max Aarons. Yeah,
definitely. I'd have to agree with that. But actually, watching the likes of Max Aarons, I thought he actually had a brilliant game. Going forward, he's very skillful, but you need to be tactically astute at the other end of the pitch. And Norwich won't want the goals flooding in, and I think they do have to be aware of that.
West Ham 0, Norwich City 5. Hugh, last week in our Premier League preview.
Norwich City 5?
Norwich City, Liverpool.
They wish.
Manchester City, yes. They will. I was going to say, I'll be contradicting myself big time if it's Norwich City going to West Ham and scoring 5. Although they may do. Where are you? Let's be having you, Delia. West Ham 0, Manchester City 5. The champions of England, they go through the gears. Raheem Sterling gets a hat-trick. Let's start with West Ham, though, first. I said that they should be aiming for the best of the rest. I think in our pre-season predictions, I had them the wrong side of the top half, bottom half divide in 11th. Again, playing a top-quality team that do score lots of goals. But I was eminently disappointed with the Happy Hammers.
Yeah, I think I was disappointed with City as well. They weren't actually that impressive, and neither were Liverpool, if we're being honest. They are in second gear at the very most, and obviously I think that they know that they simply have to turn up, do their job, because they are far superior in every position. Sterling obviously has improved his shooting. He's just a better player than he ever has been. But at the same time, Mahrez is now getting a chance. Rodri looked like he was a Rolls Royce of a player. So calm and composed on the ball.
Picked up on the back of a good performance in the Charity Shield.
Already looking like a top quality signing, and I know that goes without saying because he cost £60 million, but he's slotting into one of the most elite sides in world football just like that.
Can I just read you their bench?
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Claudio Bravo, João Cancelo, Nicolas Otamendi, Ilkay Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, and Sergio Aguero. There's only Liverpool can get near this team, can't they, Sam?
Ridiculous amount of talent.
I'm sorry, I really don't. That bench, every single one of those players gets into every single side in the Premier League. There's no way that we can compete with this. And it made me think, when I saw Liverpool scoring 4 and then City replied with 5 away from home.
And a clean sheet.
It's done. Like, we're done in the first week. It's a little bit ridiculous. This is not, I'm sorry, the most competitive league in world football. It's not. It's a joke to say that. We are at the point now where we have 3 possibly different leagues within the league. Top 2, next 4, and then the rest of them.
We'll come to the next 4, but in terms of Manchester City and a statement of intent, it doesn't come much stronger than scoring 5 away from home and a clean sheet, Sam.
No one's getting near Manchester City or Liverpool this season, and Hugh, I disagree with you. I thought both Manchester City and Liverpool were at the top of their game. I thought Origi was absolutely outstanding, especially, if you look at, people say he prefers being more central, but out wide, he did a great job. Manchester City, 5 goals with that bench is outrageous. I think nobody is getting near either of those sides.
I think we're all impressed. 9 out of 10 for the champions. Probably 8.5. I'd be erring more toward what you said. I think there's defensive improvement for sure with my pundit's hat on from Liverpool. I thought that it's very difficult. You go into a half-time break 3-0 up or 4-0 up, and you naturally, as a player, go out in the second half and you come down a little bit. It's just very impossible to maintain those standards. But for Manchester City, I mean, they are going to be the team to beat and some. And I just do wonder this season whether it might be the Premier League, the League Cup, the FA Cup and the Champions League. If they do that, stop the game. I want to get off. Let's go to yesterday's Super Sunday. Manchester United, the self-proclaimed biggest club in the world, against Chelsea. 2 legends going head-to-head, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Frank Lampard. Let's go to the talking points. For me, Chelsea, like Norwich but with better players, have got a manager and an assistant manager in Jody Morris at Chelsea. Very good coach, played for the club, loves the club, has worked with a lot of the younger talent that they're going to have to develop, like Tammy Abraham this season. A philosophy, and that philosophy is, let's just go out and play. Chaps, let's go out and play. Pop it around, through the back, through the midfield, and we'll create chances. They did in the opening 20 minutes. But Hugh, against the run of play, Manchester United scored, and it's all of a sudden Chelsea said, it's okay us getting the ball down and playing, but we've got to score. And Manchester United in that second half took the bull by the horns, were ruthless on the counter-attack. Pogba was excellent. Rashford was excellent. Harry Maguire was solid at the back. Pereira was running the shop in midfield. Daniel James bombing down the right. And you could see Manchester United grow as an outfit. What do we learn if we know that Manchester City and Liverpool are the teams to beat? Lots of people would be very excited today about Manchester United's performance. Could they get anywhere near the levels that we've seen from the champions of England and the champions of Europe this weekend with a 4-0 victory?
Almost undoubtedly not. This shouldn't be taken out of context. What you had here was an epic battle between 2 guys who were so determined to get off to a good start. They're obviously club heroes, in their own right. I just thought that it was a very naive performance or tactical setup from Lampard. And United were solid in defence. Maguire slotting in beautifully, so calm and composed on the ball, picking passes,
You were
carrying the
right
ball
about him
forward.
the other week, by the way. I mean, I thought that £80 million, it might just rattle his cage a little bit, but I think that the one thing that I need to put my hands up as a pundit and say, and this is obviously when he went from Hull to Leicester, went up a step, Leicester into the England team getting to the latter stages of the World Cup, is that he seems to take everything in his stride, and that's going to be very important for United this season.
Absolutely unbeatable in the air. Didn't put a foot wrong for me, a couple of quality interceptions, but it was, I suppose, the high energy and the press from United that I was most impressed with, and in particular Pogba, who put in a complete world-class performance.
Was that a big two fingers up to every single pundit? I mean, I could see Graham Souness probably like spinning in his seat in the Sky studio.
In all seriousness, Stan, we talk about Pogba having the ability or the potential to be a world-class midfielder, and that performance for me was just that. He dominated in every aspect. He took the game by the scruff of the neck. Interception by Maguire. He picks up, makes sure that he's the first one to the ball. He's driving and carrying the ball for 70 yards with people around him that are faster than him and should have been able to get that ball off him. No chance of getting between him and that ball. And then having the adept touch, the perfectly weighted pass into Daniel James' path. It was an incredible assist.
Sam, positives for Chelsea. Better possession, 53% to 47%. 2 more shots on target, 7-5. 7 more shots, 18 to 11 overall. More touches, more passes, more tackles. Frank Lampard was right, wasn't he? That if they'd have taken advantage in the first 20 minutes, it could have been a very different game.
When the game started, I thought, oh, this has got Chelsea written all over it. And they did have a lot of the possession, but the problem is, you look at previous Chelsea sides and you think, right, Costa's definitely going to score, Hazard's going to score, Drogba's going to score, and you know these players will have moments of brilliance. You didn't look at that Chelsea side and think, Tammy Abraham, Mason Mount, we know they're going to score because these are players that are going to grow into the Premier League, but they're not going to hit it off from the start.
So is that going to be the difference potentially between Chelsea finishing 3rd, 4th or 5th is those 2 young players that have to come good, or Frank says at the end of the season that they're a year more experienced now. It's going to be next season, the season after, when they come good.
Well, Frank Lampard has completely put his faith in them, which will give them confidence. But Tammy Abraham, hit the inside of the post. If that would have gone in, would that have completely changed the game and his confidence as a player? But Frank Lampard does have on his side the transfer ban. He can say, let's give these young players a bit of time to grow into the game, because he couldn't go out and buy players. Spurs
3, the Babbies, the European champions of 1982. You two laughing, having a little giggle at me. I've got to have something. It was funny actually, because the Villa fans, they were away to my left in the corner, made a lot of noise and travelling their numbers, and have done for a long time, the travelling Old End, and they've seen a lot of garbage. I think they would have been very happy, generally speaking, with what they saw. But Spurs 3, Villa 1. Sam, from a Spurs perspective, we've gone through it. Dominated possession, 31 shots. Harry Kane finally not finally, he did it last year, but he's up and running in August for a change.
I know, I was gutted. I didn't put him in my fantasy Premier League, thinking, do you know what? August isn't usually his month, and he proved me wrong, that's for sure. But Eriksen came on and completely changed the dynamics of the game. He brought that intensity. He raised the levels of every player on that pitch. But I was, like you, very impressed with Villa.
From a promoted team's perspective, I mean, some people say park the bus, and it looked like that in the second half. Dean Smith, in his post-match comment, said he was disappointed that they didn't rest on the ball. They'd win it back. Tyrone Mings, head on a stick. I thought they defended very well. Bjorn Engels, that you mentioned last week, he was very good. Is that when they had possession, it was a little bit rushed. They wanted to get it up front to Wesley early. They wanted to get it up to Jonathan Kodjia, who came on as a substitute early. I'm going to defer to you on this one, because I think there's plenty of positives from Aston Villa. You may completely disagree, because at the end of the day, they lost 3-1.
I don't actually disagree. I thought they were fantastic for large portions of the game and actually made Tottenham look quite poor. Until Eriksen came on, I think Ndombele was struggling. He was trying to do things, but falling over the ball a lot. Passes weren't connecting. It wasn't happening. Shooting is fine. And I get the feeling that their tactic a lot of the time is just feed the beast that is Kane. Give him the ball, let him take pop shots. Or if we're in and around the area, let's have a go. But ultimately, Villa played very well. The one lazy moment for me was from their hairband Laden.
Oh, you're
Jack
not.
Grealish.
Please don't have a go at God.
No, I am going to have a go because this is the thing, right? I see massive similarities between this kid and Jack Wilshere. They both release the ball very late. They're very good on the turn, good passing. He's a great player. He was very, very lazy and foolish trying to dribble out of his area when surrounded by a whole bunch of Tottenham players, and that was their undoing. The whole game, everyone's worked their socks off so that they could stay in the game. They were leading for so long. He threw the game away single-handedly, and when you see your side, you'll know go down, having worked your
you can say arse.
Backsides off for the majority
We
of the game.
love an arse.
It is incredibly frustrating and probably quite demoralising, and I saw heads drop, and Tottenham took hold when Eriksen came on.
Jack Grealish, Hugh Whizzy's wade straight into you. I sent him a message. I sent Tyrone Mings a message. And also John McGinn that I thought was top quality. Hey, by the way, Sir Alex Ferguson, less of your comments in the paper saying, let's take John McGinn. I've been talking about this lad for a long time. He's just signed a new 5-year contract. Leave your grubby Mancunian mitts off. That was Spurs 3, Villa 1. Newcastle United 0, Arsenal 1. Let's go into the analysis of that. Hugh, I was at the gym. I'd been to Spurs on the Saturday. I was getting ready for Super Sunday, Manchester United against Chelsea. And I watched on the treadmill Newcastle against Arsenal. I thought, rainy, flat, where are the smiles? Where's the opening day enthusiasm? But Arsenal come away with dominance in possession, dominance in touches and passes, 1 goal to the good and a clean sheet. Is your Gooner glass half full or half empty?
Currently, it's half full. First time in 10 years Arsenal have won away from home on the opening day. I thought that we played a second string team with a whole bunch of youngsters that really looked to have grabbed their opportunity from pre-season. Nelson looked fantastic, kind of sitting in Iwobi's place, having left.
Let's go through the team very briefly because it is an Arsenal team that we've not been classically used to. Bernd Leno in goal. Socrates, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, Nacho Monreal, Callum Chambers in the back four. Your midfielders are Henrik Mkhitaryan, Reece Nelson, Joe Willock, Matteo Guendouzi. I love Guendouzi, he's my type of player. Granit Xhaka and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Still had enough though.
Yes, and the likes of Willock, who not many people, apart from Arsenal fans who have watched pre-season, will have seen that much of. Very impressive, calm, composed, strong in the challenge, decisive. He is grabbing this opportunity, and with Ozil and Kolasinac missing, he looks to be one of the guys who I think will be pushed on this season. Nelson and Guendouzi, again, showing huge potential. And my star for the biggest moment of the game was the anticipation and interception from Maitland-Niles. Incredible pace. And he picks out Aubameyang with a cross to get his first assist. And to be honest, a 1-0 victory, kind of fair, because Newcastle started very well. New striker Joe Linton's got a bit about him. He's good presence. He's a massive lump. He will get goals. And it's a shame for Newcastle fans that one of the 3 chances they had in the first half didn't go in, because they probably deserved a goal out of the game.
Young players, Sam. You're still a young player. You've got a great CV. You've played for West Ham Women, QPR. You've just been away and won a gold medal. Congratulations.
Thank you.
In the Maccabi Games for GB. Frank Lampard can get away with the narrative. And you hit the nail on the head about narratives and how people view. It's as important what they perceive as what the reality is. Frank Lampard can say at the end of the season, we've had a double transfer ban, so I've got to play these young players, so please don't be too harsh on them. Arsenal have played a very young team today, but the expectation is they got to a Europa League final. They haven't got a transfer ban. There's been lots of behind-the-scenes stuff, as Hugh and I mentioned last week, about potential malcontent. That was quite a bold move from Unai Emery, throwing in so many kids on Premier League match day 1.
Do you know what? After watching that game, I was sat on my sofa with a cup of tea, didn't need to move, great amount of football on. But watching Arsenal, I'm really, really excited about. I'm not an Arsenal fan, so this does hurt me to say it. But after watching the young talent on display, I'm really excited about watching Arsenal. But we always get excited about
Arsenal. They're always going to be 85, 90% of the teams by 2s and 3s and 4s and 5s. That's not the point. The point is, can they achieve something this season? Tangible, silverware. on the mantelpiece.
Stan, there's two very impressive things that I think we should be talking about with Arsenal right now. They've got 3 points away from home.
Correct,
with a
clean sheet. I gave you that.
Yeah.
How many of those did we get last season? I'll tell you, 1. Yeah, we've already equalled last season's clean sheet away win record. That in itself is a positive sign. We did that with a second string 11. This Callum Chambers not starting. There's about a full 11 that you could put out that Arsenal would prefer to start. On the bench, we're having the best bench I've seen at Arsenal for probably a decade. I kid you not, Ceballos, Pepe, you've got Tierney who's coming back. Lacazette was on the bench. Plus, I want to tell you the stats, right? I know that Sam's your stat.
I love a stat.
Today, but
you do get me juicy on stats.
Aubameyang just played his 50th Premier League game, and that was his 33rd goal. Now, the only players to have scored more than him in their first 50 Premier League
for Arsenal in the Premier League. I'm going to throw in Shearer, Thierry Henry. What about Sergio Aguero, Fernando Torres, Robbie Fowler, Michael Owen?
He's ahead of all of them, mate. Alan Shearer, 41, Andy Cole, 41, Mohamed Salah, 35, and Kevin Phillips, 34. Those are the only players in Premier League history who've got more goals in their first 50 games.
So Arsenal, that's a big thumbs up from all of us, with a little caution from me. Let's go. I want to rattle through some of the games. Leicester 0, Wolves 0. We've already spoken about the big incident in the game in terms of VAR. I guess for Wolves this season, it's going to be balancing Europa League football and being able to be the best of the rest again.
Yeah, I think Wolves, the fact that Leicester were held to 1 shot on target is testament to how solid Wolves are as a unit. I do feel like the handball rule is a little bit out there. I personally thought it was very harsh to disallow that. However, Wolves, again, we know what they're about. People this year should be expecting to be able to have to break them down. It's going to be difficult.
The promoted teams, Aston Villa lose, but we've talked about the positives. Norwich City lose, and you've talked about plenty of positives and young players, Sam, likes of Max Aarons. Bournemouth 1, Sheffield United 1. Very good manager, 3-4-2-1 system, which I know that Match of the Day went into big time about central defenders overlapping down the right. But the one player that I want to bring out, he scored in League 2, League 1, the Championship and the Premier League. Must be delighted for Billy Sharp too. It's one of those great stories. He had a lot of adversity to deal with several years ago, family issues. So the fact that he's come up with a club that he's synonymous with and they get a point on opening day, must be delighted for them.
Oh, definitely. I think Sheffield are maybe one to watch this season. I'm really intrigued how they will get on in the Premier League. And I think Darren Bent said, Billy Sharp, if he can score in all the other leagues, he can score in the Premier League. Stan, do you agree with that?
I do. I think that if you're an intuitive, natural striker, I'll give you another one. Jordan Rhodes. We said last week, the stereotypical, here's the guy that does it in the Championship, but nobody's going to take a punt on him. The reason why they didn't take a punt on him in the Premier League, and I know because I spoke to scouts, I know because I spoke to people at clubs, he's not quick enough, Stan. If you put the ball in front of a central striker and give him lots of support from the left and the right, if you can notice that they're an intuitive striker, Jamie Vardy went from Fleetwood to Leicester in double quick time to being a Premier League winner. I think, and it's funny you say that because we talk about Billy Sharp, because I saw the picture of him wheeling away, great picture from the news wires, and I thought, how many, and I'm going to pick on Unai Emery, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, themselves are getting in a car and going to watch Bolton, Bury, I know that probably not good examples to use at the minute, Coventry City, MK Dons, watching players that are doing it lower down and saying, they're a natural goal scorer. Shall we give them the lift up and give them an opportunity? So I'm delighted for Billy Sharp, and you make the very good point. A goal scorer is a goal scorer is a goal scorer, and I think for the bigger clubs, they're going elsewhere and looking rather than promoting from up the leagues. Let's rattle through a few. Palace 0, Everton 0. I guess the only question is, Hugh, after the disappointment of not getting a move, still could move abroad, of course, will Wilfried Zaha get his head down this season?
I mean, I hope so, especially given the fact that the fans gave him a standing ovation when he came on. They're behind him. You know, they don't know how long they're going to have him, but he's probably their most exciting player. They expect him to hit the ground running again. 0-0 draw is not bad for either side, to be honest. I didn't really see him do anything special when he did come on, but he was only given 20 so minutes. I feel like he may well move in January, especially given post-match interviews that players were giving, saying, we don't know how long we're going to have him, but we're going to enjoy him while we do.
There are any of the big boys that would take him around Europe? I mean, could you see a Barcelona, a Real Madrid just say, all right, well, we're cash rich. We know that everybody knows we brought in the likes of Eden Hazard, and there's the Neymar situation which may run and run. But could he do the job in La Liga, Paris Saint-Germain, the Bundesliga? This is a top quality wide man.
I think in order to go to one of those clubs abroad, I think he needs to move to a different Premier League club first, prove he can do it, with one of the top 4 teams, for example, and then possibly after that look for a move abroad. But I mean, there was so many talks of him going to Spurs, but I'm really pleased with the Spurs' new signings, and now I'm not sure there's much room for Zaha because the deal's not been done now.
Burnley 3, Southampton 0. I did say to you last week, Hugh, Whizzy, I was worried about the Saints, and I had it was on our Facebook page, The Last Word with Stan Collymore. Please follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, and of course on Twitter. And there was a comment, and it was barbed. He wasn't impolite. He didn't swear at me. I get often swore at. And it was, hey, Mr. Collymore, Ralph Hasenhüttl's side don't finish 17th. If they're losing 3-0 against Burnley on match day 1, dare I suggest that I may not be too far off. They were expecting a much, much better start than that, surely.
Battle of the goalkeepers was interesting for me this weekend. Pickford getting clean sheet for Everton against Palace with a couple of top saves, and Pope. Burnley have a plethora of great goalkeepers.
To the point that we've just taken one and he brought out 2 go-go gadget right arms at White Hart Lane. Tom Heaton, of course, £8 million. Bargain of the summer, and we got him.
I don't know what you think about Dyche, the manager, but I really do think that England possibly have missed a trick. He has quintessentially put together, with very little money, a side who not only can play football when they're asked to, but also are incredibly solid. 11 in the matchday squad, Hugh. We're rocking and rolling now. We're feeling it. I'm so delighted these 2 are on board this season because they're getting me going. When you make points like you made there about Sean Dyche, England, did they miss a trick? Nick Pope, English. Matt Loughton was at Villa, didn't happen for him. Right back, English. Tarkowski, English. Ben Mee, English. That's 4 out of the back 5 that are English. Midfield, Jack Cork, English. Dwight McNeil, English. Ashley Westwood, another former villain, English. Even on the bench, Joe Hart, experience, great in the dressing room. Ben Gibson, of course, Middlesbrough, Steve Gibson's nephew, I think. Aaron Lennon, English experience, and a player that I'm sure that this season they'll be looking to push on. Coming back to his hometown, if you like, Jay Rodriguez. There aren't many all-English, vast majority of English clubs. I watched a video the other day, very, very briefly. It was Liverpool against, I don't know if it was Sheffield Wednesday, whether it was my debut, but somebody pointed me towards a game on Twitter, and it was the Liverpool team I was in, all English, except for one player that I think was Irish. I played in Aston Villa teams that finished near the top of the table and in Europe that are all English. The talent's still there then. Mm-hmm. It is indeed. And for me as an Arsenal fan even, last season's Europa League final, there was one English player starting for Arsenal. We had Callum Chambers, Maitland-Niles, Reece Nelson, Chris Willock, a whole bunch of them coming through the ranks. It is exciting when your club has the faith in its own homegrown players. And, Tottenham have been a great example for England, a shining beacon. They've basically taken us to a World Cup, right? With 3, 4, 5 of the squad. Kyle Walker and Sterling, and doing it at Manchester City with Foden coming through. There's a lot of potential. It's so promising as well, seeing those youngsters going abroad, the likes of Lookman and Sancho can excel. And I think propel us with in the future anyway, with the youngsters having won the World Cup recently as well, the future's bright.
Watford 0, Brighton 3. I didn't see this one coming, and I'm going to have this as my result of the weekend. Brighton 5 shots, 3 on target that we've mentioned. An absolutely super start for Graham Jones. Brighton only scored 3 twice. Graham Potter, I beg your pardon. Brighton only scored 3 twice last season. And 7 clean sheets. So they've kept a clean sheet, 1/7 of the total from last season. And they're a third of the way already in terms of scoring 3. Fantastic start for Graham Potter and for Brighton and Hove Albion. I guess this season their main aim is going to be staying up.
Well, I was a bit worried for them when they lost Anthony Knockaert, and they've just completely proved us wrong. But it is only one game, and I have to say, with Watford, sometimes you don't know what you're going to get with them. They can be inconsistent.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because we were giving them the right big up last week, Hugh, about all of the options that they've got up front. They've got leadership with Troy Deeney. You know, they've got Defoe that picks the ball up and he can attack people and he's clever. They got to an FA Cup final last season. They lost the last game of last season against West Ham, probably with their eyes on that FA Cup. If not, I think that they would have beaten West Ham and finished in the top half. And on match day one, they get done by a team. Yes, it's a new manager in Graham Potter. And yes, he wants to get the ball down and play like he did at Swansea City. But that's a woeful result, isn't it, for Watford?
It might be, but I think, again, context is quite important. Abdoulaye Doucouré, very unlucky, conceding the own goal. And once that happens, you're down. Tactics got to change. We have to do something different. And as a result, Potter, I saw him at Ostersunds. They are patient on the ball. They'll look after it. And the fact they've only had 5 shots and they've scored 3 of them shows they're basically shooting to score. And that in itself, I like it. It's impressive. Tottenham are the opposite. They are shooting just randomly at will, and it works as well.
The amount of statistics this season in match day one that said 17 shots, 1 on target, 18 shots, 2 on target. I mean, I guess playing devil's advocate here is that 3 out of 5 is excellent, but 5 was the lowest amount of shots in the league. If you keep doing that, the better the opposition, the less inconsistent the opposition, it may hurt you down the line.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And, you know, I think that's one of the reasons they've got rid of Houghton, right? Because they are looking for that little bit more security. It wasn't expansive under Houghton, and I don't think he necessarily did anything wrong, but he wasn't doing enough right. They're showing promising signs.
Right, I want you to both get your heads around, before we go into the news with Hugh and Sam, your player of the match day, please. So give that a little bit of thought and we'll come to that shortly.
Stan Collymore.
The #1 football podcast supported by the UK #1 sealant and adhesive CT1. I've got kids. Yes, I have. And I want them to live in a beautiful world. Don't we all, people out there, want them to live? Can you hear Donald Trump? Live in a beautiful world. So we all have to do our bit to reduce our carbon footprint. CT1 very much does that. Let me tell you what I mean. On large building sites, if you swap to CT1, you'll only need 1 product. Not several, 1 product replaces 7. So for example, instead of 700 empty plastic cartridges on site, by using CT1, you'll only have 100. That immensely reduces the waste tonnage. CT1 is great for skirting boards, ceiling mouldings. 1 product will do it all. CT1 is guaranteed not to shrink. We all need that, don't we, fellas? Does the job first time, every time. We need to do that as well, fellas. Reducing carbon footprint on building sites is now a mission statement by large contractors. So by using CT1, you don't have to use several products, just 1 tube. The #1 football podcast supported by the #1 sealant and adhesive. That's CT1. Last week, I caught up with Liverpool legend Jamie Carragher at the Royal Hotel in Crosby.
The last word with Stan Collymore.
OK, I'm absolutely delighted to be up in Liverpool. It's match day 1 of the Premier League. And who better to pick the brain than somebody that's made 508 Liverpool appearances, 2 or 3 very early ones alongside yours truly. That's how long ago and how long his Liverpool career was. 2 FA Cups, 3 League Cups, 1 Champions League on a very famous night in Istanbul, 2 Super Cups and 1 UEFA Cup. Jamie Carragher, delighted that you can join me. Let's go straight into to Liverpool against Norwich, because they open up the season. Can they go one better in the league, or is it going to be arguably the toughest task yet in the Premier League?
I think Liverpool's going to be an interesting one this season for everyone in the game to analyse, because I think in some ways a lot of people will say at times this season they've gone backwards, because you can't do more than what they did in the Champions League. And can they get more than 97 points? I don't think they can. That doesn't mean they can't win the league. But I think what they need and other teams need, but especially Liverpool, because I think we'd agree Liverpool are the next best after City. They need City to come back to the pack. And I think the big worry for Liverpool and the rest of the top 6 is this 96, 97 or 100 points what City got a couple of years ago, that's the norm for Pep Guardiola. If you go to Barcelona, if you go to Bayern Munich, you come to City, that's what he does. Now, I'm saying Liverpool and other sides will need City to come back to the park. I'm not sure they will. I think as soon as Pep Guardiola leaves, they will. Because this is just unheard of what they're doing, and it's unheard of what Liverpool did last season in terms of points tally. But for Liverpool to win the league, I think they need City to drop back, and I don't really see that because Guardiola's history tells you that it doesn't happen. And last season, I don't want to use the word lucky because I don't agree with that, but Liverpool made the most of everything that sort of went for them, and that they were, you could say they were lucky with injuries, but then you could say, well, that's because the sports science team are good or Klopp's training's good. So you can look at it both ways. So it's not just luck.
7 draws, though, would suggest that if they'd have turned one of those into a victory, they'd have won the title. So there is wiggle room if they hit the benchmark that they did last season. Difficult it is. I mean, it's difficult to explain to people when you're chasing a team that, like you say, is hitting or getting near to 100 points, that you're looking for every possible angle. 7 draws suggests that Liverpool could, if they replicated last season, overhaul Manchester City.
Draws kill you in the league. People think it's defeat, it's draws. Because if you actually think of last season, with about 10 or 12 games to go, maybe a little bit more, Tottenham was still in for the title. Tottenham had lost 5 games at that stage, but they hadn't. If you remember last season, Tottenham didn't draw a game. I don't know, until about March or April. And that shows you how important it is. City lost 4 games, but I think they only drew 1 or 2.
2, yeah.
It's the draws that kill you, and that's what, actually in 2009, we finished behind United by 3 or 4 points. We only lost 2 games, which we thought it's an unbelievable achievement to go through a 38-game season. Liverpool only lost 1 last season. We only lost 2, but we drew too many games.
So when you go back to pre-season, we had a chat with Jurgen last week, and he called a couple of weeks ago, and he was very positive for the season ahead. Transfer window is now closed. Brought in young, players like Harvey Elliott that undoubtedly will go on to be very good players, and he's a big Liverpool fan. Is that when you go back into the dressing room the next season, having had an amazing season and only lost 2 games, does everybody look around the dressing room aware of how difficult it's then going to be? Because I see James Milner, we want to go for it. You can see the passion and the drive in their eyes, Jordan Henderson. But they must also look around and say, we've also got to get almost to perfection to win this.
Yeah, I think that's how they will feel, but they will feel on the back of a Champions League win. On the back of a Champions League win, I can only use my own experience of what that does for you as a player. It gives you a bit of arrogance in a nice way, football arrogance, I'd say. So they should believe, because when we won in 2005, I never believed I was good enough to play at that level or to win that. But once you've done it, you think, well, I am now.
Yeah.
And the Liverpool players the same in that squad. So before they were probably watching Barcelona, Real Madrid, obviously they got there the year before, all these teams, you actually think, am I as good as them? But once you've done it, it should give them that extra little bit of something this season, really. But yeah, I think they'll be well aware that they will have to go near to perfection this season. I think the second half against City in the Community Shield sort of give everyone a lift in some ways, because the pre-season hadn't gone great for Liverpool. Listen, there's no big deal, the pre-season. But I think the way they sort of should have gone on and won the game against City, I think has given everyone a little bit of added belief in terms of the support that we will run them close again. Because I think beforehand, people were thinking, we got so close, but will you get that close again? But as I said, if Liverpool got 90 points this season, it'd still be an amazing total. They've had a great season. It's just that you're coming up against one of the greatest sides, I think we'll be saying, in the next 2 or 3 years when Pep goes, of all time.
Thoughts on the window? Closed yesterday. Firstly, are you a fan of it closing before the season starts? I am, because everybody knows what they've then got, rather than having a situation of players coming in and being integrated in the group. So your thoughts on the window closing before game 1 starts? And let's look at the best bits of business. I mean, Pepe, Luis, Tierney going into Arsenal, Lo Celso, Sessegnon at Spurs, Rodrigo, Manchester City, Cancelo as well, Delphi Wobie down the road at Everton, Harry Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Daniel James, players like Yuri Tielemans at Leicester City. Are you a fan of the window closing the eve of the season, and who's done business that you think is going in the right direction?
Well, in terms of the job I'm in, I'm not too bothered when the window closes, but I can totally understand managers thinking I want it closed. But in terms of us, it probably gains more talking points, more excitement. It goes on longer, if you like. I just think the slight problem with it is that you can still have players who can leave. So you're still not getting away from that fact that there might be people unhappy in the dressing room. They could go abroad. I know not too many players do that now these days. But also, in terms of the top clubs, does it give an advantage to Madrid, Barcelona, Munich, different big teams, Paris Saint-Germain, that they've got longer to bring someone in? Really. So I'm not too fussed either way, to be honest. In terms of who's brought people in, I actually am looking at Arsenal. And not so much as in I think they're going to challenge for the title. I still think they'll be there or thereabouts, top 4. But I think the pessimism after the Europa League final and how far away they were from Chelsea, really, in that game.
In the background of potential protests and not happy with Stan Kroenke and the board and the general malcontent.
This talk of 40 million to spend, which is not a great deal of money. Now, maybe you could look at it and think, well, maybe Arsenal are quite clever. Actually telling people they only had 40 million, because it looks like they've done I don't know exactly what they've spent. They've got the Iwobi money back, so maybe it is around about that figure what they've spent now. But they seem to have done a lot of business and come out of it a lot healthier, I think, than people were fearing, or certainly Arsenal fans were fearing. There was certainly, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, I think there was letters getting written to the owner, wasn't there? I've seen it on social media, Stan Kroenke and stuff like that. So I think the position they're in, and the David Luiz one, is an interesting one, really.
Are you a fan of him?
No, not really.
Come to Gary Neville, because I think they've opened the front door, Arsenal, and gone, oh, there's somebody just down the road that we can bring in.
Yeah.
And it reminds me of kind of like a rival second-hand player. If you're a Liverpool player, if you're Man United, if you're Chelsea and Arsenal, you want your own people that you can mould into your own club. Not just kind of off the peg, we'll get him because he's available. And what also does it say to people like Rob Holding and Skrdan Mustafi, that somebody that is widely regarded at times as a bit of a liability in terms of his defending comes in as on the eve of the season?
Well, listen, I'm not a massive fan of David Luiz. Probably people know that over the last few years. I think at times he's better than what people talk about. You know, let's not forget he's played in the middle of a back three that went on to win a title under Conte. He was very disciplined there. I think it helped him being in a back three. But I can totally understand it from Arsenal's position. They've lost Koscielny, who's the experienced man. And I'm so disappointed in Koscielny because...
You saw Ian Wright going in on him on the video.
Yeah, but I just...
Do you think that was a bit crass?
Yeah, but to be honest, I didn't see the video. Oh, the video of the shirt.
So basically, he swaps the shirt and people have gone, well, all right, you want to go, but there's a better way of doing it than taking off an Arsenal shirt and revealing a Bordeaux shirt.
I just think... I thought he was one of those players where you look at his different club and you think, you know, he's a good lad. He's a good player. Probably coming to the end, but that happens. That's fair enough. But you just think, don't leave like that. You've put a good solid stint in there at a top club, and I just think they've lost the experienced one, so they brought another experienced one in. It's not cost them much difference in money. You're talking about, I mean, Mustafi's nowhere near good enough for that club, so there's other young players there.
Is this a front three? Aubameyang, Lacazette, Nicolas Pepe that spent 70 million on, that is so much better than their back four that you're going to be going and doing Monday Night Football or games over the weekend, and they're going to be doing teams over 3, 4 and 5 at home, 80% of the Premier League, but still losing against the very best because the back four are not up to it.
Well, I read something that I found interesting, because a lot of people were saying, why are Arsenal spending 70 million on Pepe when they need a centre-back, whatever they need? And the feeling was at Arsenal was that they've got a great home record. If you actually look under Emery, and the away record's awful, they're more thinking they actually need to score more goals away from home. I think they're probably thinking, you know what, there's not a lot sometimes we can do defensively. And to be fair, I don't know how many great defenders are out there, because they've actually got a young kid, haven't they? Is he a French lad or something they've sent back?
Yes.
Salah.
Yes. It's like 18.
Yes, but I think they think this lad's going to be the real deal. And the Luiz thing's just coming to happen. But I don't think there is a dearth of great centre-backs out there, so it's not easy. But I think they feel they don't score enough goals, would you believe, away from home. So that's maybe something that can add to them, certainly away from home. They've got the Spanish lad, is it Ceballos? Or
yes, Ceballos from Real Madrid on loan.
So I think they've actually done quite well at the moment. Yes, it's top-heavy, and maybe it'll be exciting to watch. Really, I've never really had Unai Emery down as that type of manager. It reminds me a little bit of Rafa in that he, very studious. You see him on the side of the pitch, always very focused. So you'd expected maybe his teams to be a bit more organised, really, not conceding goals left, right and centre. But it looks like that's probably what we're going to get. But I think they'll really go for the top 4.
Brief thoughts on Chelsea, United and Spurs. Can they, I mean, we've spoken about Arsenal, we've spoken about clubs like Liverpool that are probably the only real title challenger to Manchester City. But Manchester United, again, lots of discontent. They've brought in Harry Maguire, they've brought in Daniel James, Wan-Bissaka, so youth, a new Manchester United. Lukaku's gone. They haven't brought anybody in. Are we just going to be... I mean, it seems to be a bit of a circus, which if you had an association with Liverpool is great, because it's like any chaos there is fantastic. But it all doesn't quite seem well at Manchester United.
No, but I know from being at Liverpool and where we've had times where outside the top 4 as a player, and I'd always say it's never as bad as you think. And sometimes you just get one player or a couple of players, one leaves, and something just lights up. I'm not saying that takes you the title, but I don't think Manchester United are miles away, the way people talk. I really don't. And in some ways I admire what they've done and the signings they've made, really. Could you replace Lukaku? But I think it's about time Rashford was given us a go through the middle. I've been saying that for a while. Put him through the middle. Let's see if Marcus Rashford is good enough to be Manchester United's centre-forward. He may not be. He may always be that player who plays wide a little bit, plays through the middle now and again, but is he really going to be that 20, 25 goal a season, man? Let's see. Let's have a look, really. The defenders they brought in Maguire, I think it's a good signing. People questioning the price tag, but it's just, he had a 5-year deal. They knew you were desperate. Was there anyone better you could get out there? Probably not. People say De Ligt. He's going to sign for Juventus before United. So, could they have brought maybe 1 or 2 more in? That's what the fans are complaining, but they've spent more than anyone. But I don't think United are miles away, the way people talk. And I think it will eventually take them 1 or 2 or 3, maybe 4 transfer windows to get rid of the bad apples, players who are not good enough, don't suit the way Ollie want to play. He's going to want to play like the top teams play, fast, energy. So right away you look at it, Wan-Bissaka going up and down that line, Rashford through the middle now. James, actually, great pace. So, I don't see them challenge for the title, of course. I think they'll have a fight on for top 4, but I certainly don't think they're as far away as people think.
Word on Chelsea, Frank Lampard, that you know very well, one of that sort of generation of players, huge names, household names, Premier League, international. 2 transfer windows they can't really be active in. They've let David Luiz go. Interesting season for them.
Yes, I don't think Chelsea make the top 4. I say worry for them, not worry for them, but I just think I'm doing me newspaper paper column on it, and I think they've lost the best player in the league. He was certainly my favourite player to watch in Eden Hazard. And I think they're now left with a front 3, or sort of the 4 or 5 or 6 names who will figure in that front 3. I don't think any of them get in the other top 6s, 11s, really. So I think they're a little bit short.
Will they benefit from having virtually no expectation this season? I mean, I say no expectations. They're Europa League holders. They've got a big name manager, Jody Morris, who you know as well, has gone back. And they've still got very good players, but nobody's expecting them to win the title. No. I think the thing will be, I think Frank and the team and Chelsea would have had a really good season if they got top 4. I think they'll miss out. I think the big thing they've got to be careful of is maybe an Everton or a West Ham or a Wolves or a Leicester sort of make it a top 7, if you like, and maybe Chelsea slip out. I don't see that happening, but I certainly hope, but I certainly believe Frank Lampard should not be getting questioned at all, really, if Chelsea are just outside the top 4 and things like that, because he's took a job, 1 year managerial experience, probably the toughest time to take the Chelsea job. You can't buy anyone. They're not the Chelsea of old in the players that they have. I actually think Chelsea did miraculously well last season in terms of getting to a cup final, Europa League win, and finishing 3rd behind 2 teams who got record points ever. So I know there was a discord between the manager and the supporters, so I understand that. Frank will bring that together, but I don't think it'll be easy, and I think it's important that people like ourselves give him support, not because he's English or he's our mate or we played with him, different things like that, because it is difficult circumstances, and he is a young British manager coming up against the best in the world in managers in terms of Pochettino, Klopp and Guardiola.
And this is a lad who's had 12 months at Derby. So, yes, you could say Chelsea have done him a favour in terms of giving him this big job. I think he's done Chelsea a favour because no top manager was going there.
Final question. I saw the little Premier League videos, the instruction videos from Alan Shearer about VAR. Are you a fan? It's brought in, it's for contentious issues, for goals, for penalties. Suggestion is that it's sort of 99.3% effective compared to 98.2% effective. I'm sure you guys at Sky have been prepped on it and had a look and what the expectations are. Are you a fan? And do we run the risk this season of having some glitches where, again, it becomes a major talking point for fans?
I've always been a fan. I must say, over the last year or two, I've been looking at things and thinking that this needs to get better. It can't stay as it is. We've been to the VAR at Stockley Park, where they do it. We had a meeting there. I'm commentating on the first game at Norwich, where it's going to be used. So you're thinking if something comes up, are we ready for that? I have one big problem with it, and that is, I don't think there's any need for a TV screen in the middle of the pitch. And the Premier League are going to be a lot less, or they've said to us the referees will go to it a lot less than other places. The other things, I think we need to get as many decisions right as we possibly can. But the thing with the TV screen is that someone comes in a referee's ear and says, have a look at that again. Straight away, psychologically, he's thinking, I've made a mistake. He then runs over to a TV screen. The two benches are there. You've got managers screaming. You've got players running over, getting involved. And he's looking at it. And more often than not, he changes the decision, probably 99% of the time. In the game, because people say we can't have people re-referee in the game. Well, no. The way I look at it is VAR is part of this team of getting the right decision. A referee would send someone off if his referee's assistant saw something off the ball. So if the fella upstairs in Stockley Park sees something that's right and just says, you made a mistake, change it. Very quickly, don't waste any time, because that fella's part of the team. There's no problem with that, this re-refereeing the game. He's part of the team, do that. And also what it should take away is the dissent from players coming over to the referee. They've seen it, they've changed it. Move on, let's go. Let's get on with the game. That's my big worry, that this referee going to the screen. But what I would say is, I think it's important people in our position support it. That's not saying we don't criticise it or we challenge it, but I see myself as part of the game. This is something that's trying to help the game. Let's try and help it and understand when things may not go right and push it forward. Now, in 2 or 3 years' time, if it's not right for the game, let's be stronger and say, listen, we need to go back because this hasn't worked X, Y, and Z. But at the start, I don't think we should be trying to be clever and criticise referees and criticise this. We're all part of the game. We're trying to make our game better. So let's all get behind it and give the officials, VAR, as much support as we possibly can. And if we can analyse and critique it where it can be better and maybe make it better for the game, let's do that. But let's certainly not jump on a bandwagon to batter VAR from day one.
Jamie, all it leaves for me to say is have a fantastic season. You and Gary Neville have set the bar very, very high in terms of analysis and punditry. Genuinely love your work. And let's hopefully, if we can reconvene this time next year, that Liverpool will be bringing home a Premier League title. But thank you very much for joining me on The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
Thanks for having me, Stan.
Good to see you.
All the best, lad.
A huge thanks to Jamie Carragher and the guys at the Royal Hotel. They looked after us royally, as you'd expect from a Royal Hotel. We've got his mate on next week. It's Gary Neville talking everything Premier League and maybe asking him about the troubles behind the scenes at Manchester United and, of course, his involvement with Salford City FC. The big interviews, they keep coming on The Last Word with Stan Collymore. But now, the news with Hugh and Sam.
The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
You're listening to The Last Word with Stan Collymore, Hugh, Whizzy and Sam Miller. The reason why I wanted two trusty signings alongside me is for their analysis, their punditry, their insight, their fun. I know I can get a bit serious about my football and a bit obsessive now and again, but these guys are very much bringing me back down to earth. But I also want them to do an item every week of picking out the stories from around the game. We're very much Premier League centric, but there's a whole world of football, a whole world of stories. So we're going to be bringing this news item every single week, the news with Hugh and Sam, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's see how many stories that we can fit in the next 10, 15 minutes. Let's start with story number 1, please, Sam. Something that's grabbed you from the world of football.
Jermain Defoe hat-trick for Rangers.
Yes, indeed. Both Celtic, of course, that are aiming for 9 in a row, 10 in a row, have started the Scottish Premiership very well. Rangers, likewise, back-to-back wins. I think they won 6-1 against Hibs. Jermain Defoe getting a hat-trick. I guess at the point here we want to discuss is that if he keeps his goal tally up, he always has, whether it's been the Premier League, when he went to the MLS, in the lower leagues, and now in Scotland, could he do the business around wintertime for a Premier League club? Hugh, Whizzy, discuss. I mean, he's scored goals wherever he's gone. It's a cracking start, and I'm sure Steven Gerrard won't want to lose him, but I'm also sure that Steven Gerrard and Jermain would have had a handshake that if he's doing the business and doing particularly well and a club came in for him, he may go. Could Jermain Defoe help a bottom half of the Premier League table team in the transfer window, perhaps in January?
I don't see why not. Obviously, twilight of his career, but still a fantastic poacher, and his game intelligence is getting better as he matures. He'll always score you a penalty or even win one. So for a team who is struggling for goals, it might be a decent shout.
Sam?
Definitely, he knows the Premier League inside out. He takes so much care of himself that he still keeps himself ticking over and sharp. I don't see why not.
First story from Hugh, Whizzy, please.
We've got Alex Scott saying controversially that Lionel Messi wouldn't get into Manchester City's side. Don't know how you feel about that.
It's a very interesting one. I like Alex Scott as a pundit. I was a bit critical of Jermain Genius about being sort of a bit vanilla. This was last season. I like pundits to have an opinion. And I think that she's relatively fresh and new in a game. Obviously, being a woman, you're going to get lots of guys that go in, shouldn't be commentating on the match, which is cobblers. We know it is. And Sam made the point a little bit earlier about her opinions are ramping up, and this is a very strong opinion. She qualified it, Lionel Messi wouldn't play in this Manchester City team, by saying, well, he's obviously a world-class player. It's obviously Lionel Messi, but essentially what I'm trying to say is it's about the press, it's about the high octane. But I think that you have to detach some players, certain players, and say you play them because of what they can give, not what they can't give. And I think that the summary, the essence of what she was trying to say is that Lionel Messi in 2019 isn't going to press like a De Bruyne, like a Gundogan, like all of these, Bernardo Silva, David Silva, these guys that they've got. But Lionel Messi in that Manchester City side takes them to a European title. Let's make no mistake about this. Why? Because he had assists, he had goals, and he's got lots of hard work around him. Was Alex right or wrong? Does Lionel Messi get into this Manchester City side, Sam?
For me, Messi gets into any side. He's world class.
Yeah, it goes without saying, he's the most creative player in world football. He scores more goals than anyone else. I mean, what more do you want?
Best ever?
Ludicrous.
Best ever footballer?
According to the man whose opinion I respect the most on football, yes, but my personal
Who's the man that you respect?
Probably Arsene Wenger.
Arsene Wenger says he's the best ever?
Yeah, best ever.
Okay, I'd go for Diego Maradona.
Same.
But again,
I'm same. Exactly the same.
Right, next story.
Have
you seen that documentary?
Ronaldinho for you.
Have you seen that documentary?
I haven't. I'll speak to what's his name, who made it.
Director. Okay.
Yes. Yours is Ronaldinho.
Yeah.
Yours is Lionel Messi. Mine's Diego Maradona.
No. Mine is Maradona.
Two Maradonas and a Ronaldinho.
Lace
generational, perhaps. Your next story, please, Samantha.
Gareth Bale recalled to the Real Madrid squad for the Roma friendly.
Yes, I mean, I wrote an article in the Mirror, and when this drops around tea time today, you'll be able to read my thoughts in the Mirror as well. And we thank the Mirror guys for letting us record here every Monday. Is Gareth Bale, I thought, was treated appallingly by Zinedine Zidane. Why? There's been lots of comparisons, Hugh, about just their stats, trophies won for Real Madrid. Gareth Bale demands respect. He went there. Yes, he doesn't speak Spanish fluently. He's not the first player that's gone there and won't embrace the language or embrace the culture. Does it matter when you're doing the business? But I think the way that he was left out, the obvious way he was being pushed out the door, I thought was very unprofessional and very unbecoming from a man that, let's not forget, in Zinedine Zidane, that isn't just a great manager, but he knows that dressing room environment as well. He knows perhaps what it's like to have his nose pushed out of joint. So Gareth Bale back in the squad, good thing. Can he just get his head down and have another good season for Real Madrid?
I mean, I question whether he'll be there for much longer, if I'm honest. There have been reports that Bayern Munich have reignited their interest in Bale after Leroy Sané's injury. Real Madrid do want to get rid of James Rodriguez, Mariano, and thereafter getting Neymar in a swap deal, a sensational swap deal. I just don't think that he's going to survive there much longer. Obviously, him and his agent can sit out for as long as they want and make it as difficult as they can. But realistically, he'll want to play, and I don't think that Zidane is ever going to accept him, and much like a lot of the Real Madrid fans.
All right, let's do your next story.
Okay, next we have got Jayden Sancho's place at Borussia Dortmund is under threat from a 14-year-old.
Discuss.
Okay, well, his name is Youssoufa Moukoko. He's born in Cameroon, but he's registered as a German. And just to stress how talented this guy is, I've got a couple of stats. 46 goals in 25 games as a 12-year-old in the under-17s.
What?
He scored 6 goals on his debut for the under-19s last week. At the weekend, sorry. And he is being reported as the German star of the future. Incredible goal record. A machine who... I'm saying he's surpassing you already, mate.
You're not wrong there. I mean, firstly, that's quite an incredible story. We saw the one Manchester United have signed Hannibal, I can't pronounce his surname, but 16-year-old. So obviously players are getting younger and younger. The thing I'm going to throw straight to you, Sam, is that why can't he play in the same team as Jadon Sancho? Because Sancho he's not exactly been poor for Borussia Dortmund.
I was just going to say, if there's a young and upcoming talent, then the manager needs to make sure that there's room for both of them, because Jadon Sancho has been excellent. A player I love to watch, so much flair about him. You can't get rid of him. Keep both of them in.
Your next and final story, please, Sam.
I'm going with Salah. So, consoles a fan who runs into a lamppost chasing his car. Sounds like something I would do when I was younger.
Again, having driven out of... So, Melwood, for people that don't know, the Liverpool training complex is right in the middle of a housing estate. And you sort of drive down a road, there's houses everywhere, all around, and then you go in, it's like Fort Knox, the gate opens and you're buzzed in and you're buzzed out. But so many kids would come for autographs, and of course you've trained. If you stay and you stop your car, you've got 600 kids. That's a couple of, players want to get out. They want to be going, and they've got really busy lives playing FIFA at home and going shopping in the Arndale Centre. So they go out very quickly. So you drive down the road, and usually you get 2 or 3 very wily kids across the road that'll do that little sprint, 10, 15 yards. The kid has sprinted the 10, 15 yards. He's looked at Mo Salah's car, and he's done quite incredible thing of looking one way, not looking forward, smashing his head into a lamppost. And you saw the picture. Mo Salah's stood with him, not knowing whether to smile or cry. The lad's got claret kicking down his nose, but he's got a red Liverpool shirt on. So I think that Salah signed his shirt, had a couple of photos with him.
And he's bleeding red.
We've all been there as football fans. Did you ever do anything daft outside Highbury, waiting for Bruce Rioch, or for Ian Wright? Any fan stories?
I've waited for players, managers. I've definitely been crazy enough to chase a couple of them as they drove off. Theo Walcott actually ran over my foot once. So Theo, if you're listening, I'm open to an apology or a coffee even. But I just love Salah. He seems so selfless, such a good energy guy that it's great to see not only the fact that he is sticking up for things I think that need talking about, like women's rights in the Middle East, but also that he is down to earth enough to see this is a guy who obviously loves me. Like, it might be a little bit obsessive, it might be a little bit much. We may need a restraining order at some stage.
Do you think it's a classy touch, though? Because I see kind of like now, every media outlet posts the picture and says, classy touch. That's what we'd all do, isn't it? If we saw a kid smash his head on a lamppost, you'd stop and have a...
Okay, let's talk about that for a second. Who was the star of the Women's World Cup recently?
Megan Rapinoe.
Who took quite a lot of stick for the way that she was dealing with a young fan.
Okay.
And I think that out of context, it's quite easy to say, players can be dismissive. They are people. I've heard stories that
But did you see the other video of Megan Rapinoe where she's at the airport and she's signing?
To get to the main point, it taken out of context can be completely warped and manipulated to suit an agenda. The fact of the matter is, they are people. They are going to have moments. We all do. If you catch me early in the morning before I've had a coffee, I don't really want to know what you're saying.
I can tell. I've seen it already.
However,
go on.
However, elite level players who are consistently surrounded by thousands, hundreds of fans all the time, having media responsibilities and whatnot, they have developed into classy people who more often than not deal with fans in an amazing way.
Your final story, one that involves yours truly. I've got a little anecdote here and yeah, go on.
Indeed. Basically, I have seen an incredible man in Iñaki Williams. He's been a talented young individual at Athletic Bilbao for quite some time. He's been handed a 9-year contract with a release clause of 135 million. Listen, I don't know how this is changing, but it seems to be changing in front of our eyes. And the contracts that these young kids are getting, he's not even that young, 25. 9 years seems excessive.
What used to happen is, basically, when I was at Walsall and Wolves as an apprentice, you get to the end of your apprenticeship, 16 to 18, and out of the group of 25 youth team players, it was almost religious number of 2 would make it. They'd take 2. They'd take the risk on 2. Now, of course, in those days, clubs didn't have huge multi-million pound cheques being posted every week from television rights holders and sponsors. So they looked at it and said, we will give you a 1-year contract, and in that 1 year, you've got to prove that you're a pro. At the end of that 1 year, if you can prove you're a pro, we'll give you a 3-year contract. And of course, one of the issues and problems is there are now many players that we've never heard of, that we'll never hear of, that have had 3- and 4-year contracts at Premier League clubs and didn't make it. But they've walked out the game with a couple of £1 million. There are lots of stories. And I see people pop up on my Twitter feed saying, Stan, I was at QPR, I was there for 4 years, never played a game. I've come out, I don't know what to do with this, I don't know what to do with that. So it does happen. What we're getting now is clubs want an insurance policy. It's not enough now to just have a sell-on clause, because often clubs will meet that. So if you've got a 6-year contract, if you've got a 9-year contract, if you've got a 10-year contract, then all of a sudden you've got a release clause, but you've also got to, one of the parties has to pay that player up, which is usually a significant fee. So Iñaki Williams, Athletic Bilbao, 9 years. Joe Felix, 6 years. With option for a 7th, very much going to be the mainstay for Atletico Madrid. Harry Maguire, 6 years, Manchester United. And you mentioned going all the way back in the day, 1998, Denilson was probably one of the forerunners with a blockbuster decade-long deal.
2 other players who've actually I've found have been given or offered longer contracts. Iker Casillas and Raul of Real Madrid were offered full lifetime contracts as long as they completed at least 30 games a season. That in itself shows what legends they were. But for Iñaki Williams, who is one of Athletic Bilbao, obviously they have this Basque country rule where
they got it. So basically Basques only, which is obviously the northern Basque, northern part of Spain, and also the southern part of France. So Vicente Lizarazu, most famously, great player for the French national team, left fullback. I think played his career very late on at Athletic, or certainly one of the Basque clubs. Is that they have a cantera policy. Homegrown Basque players, and you can still, if you are an Athletic Bilbao player, Athletic in English, not Atletico, is because they obviously like to develop their players, but I think you can go to now have a grandfather, it might even be great-grandfather, from the Basque country to be able to play for them. So Iñaki Williams very much fulfills that criteria, and they want him in the team.
Yeah, plenty of these guys are actually developing into top-class players as well. Just to name a few off the list, Javi Martinez, Aymeric Laporte, Benya, Kepa. They're all turning up in the Premier League, but Iñaki Williams isn't going anywhere for quite some time unless you pay the big bucks.
One final word, the last word from me before we out, as they say, is that last week Glenn Johnson, a man that I respect and admire greatly, fantastic right fullback for Chelsea, for Liverpool, for the England national team, I thought went very hard and unfair on Saido Berahino. So just to give you a little story of how that panned out, a lot of people would have seen on Twitter that I said, this is without context, Soda Berino had a horrific childhood. He and his family got out of war-torn Burundi, age 10. His father was murdered. And all I was seeing on Twitter was, yeah, but he's a spoilt millionaire and still he can learn better behaviour. We agree that. Was Soda Berino a good pro at West Brom and Stoke? Probably not. But I think that players need to be very, very careful in going in on people that have particularly quite horrific background. So to cut a long story short, he lives down the end of the road from me, Defoe. I wanted to go and reach out to him for many, many years. I jumped over the fence. I wrote a note. His mum got the note. He's in Belgium. He's just signed for Zulte Waregem. I sent him a long message saying, would you like help and a bit of mentoring? He said yes. So hopefully the happy ending to this story would be he scores a sack full of goals in the Belgian Jupiler League, maybe comes back to England one day, learns some of the mistakes and travails of the past, as we all do as human beings, and he can go on and be a good citizen. Glenn Johnson, I have absolute respect for you, but when you go and do a story on radio or on telly, please put some context in it.
The Last Word with Stan Collymore.
Another fantastic packed episode of The Last Word with Stan Collymore, Hugh, Whizzy and our debutant Sam Miller. Thanks again to CT1, voted the #1 sealant and adhesive in the UK many, many times. One of those reasons being it reduces the carbon footprint. One product will replace 7, guaranteed not to shrink, so you don't have to keep repairing sealant on baths, sinks or windows. CT1 does the job the very first time. A bit like me.
Stan Collymore.
That's your lot this week on The Last Word with Stan Collymore. We'll be back same time next week, of course. Don't forget you can subscribe through all of your podcast outlets. We're going to be dropping videos through the week. Lots of analysis, lots of punditry every single week on the big games. Sam, it was your debut. I thought you were exceptional, bombing down that left-hand side. You can come again. Did you enjoy it?
I did. I really enjoyed it. Talking about football with you two, what's not to enjoy?
And Hugh, a good week for the Gooners. What have you got coming up this week?
It's fantastic to be back, mate. Busy week. Obviously, be covering all the football on my channel. So if you do want to check that out, youtube.com/Hugh Whizzy.
We out. See you next week.
This is a Listening Dog Media production.